What sets the Earth apart from the other planets in our solar system? Perhaps from all other planets in our galaxy? The answer is simple: life. An amazing and bewildering variety of life, from the ocean depths to the highest mountain peaks. To put it in human terms, this biological diversity is the most important of all natural resources. The diverse genes, species, habitats, and ecosystems provide the materials upon which we ultimately rely. The loss of even a single species reduces the options for nature, and for us, to respond to environmental changes. To perhaps put the importance of biological diversity on yet a higher plane, that vast array of organisms that surrounds us, the soundless explosion of life that has developed over the millennia, should be appreciated for their own sake, apart from any direct benefits that they may provide to humanity. Organisms should be encouraged to exist not as remote islands, museum specimens, left to survive in the few green enclaves left behind after human development, but as large, functioning ecosystems. If we are to conserve biological diversity, we must address both immediate and long-term problems, and we must remember that protecting species means protecting habitats. It also means restoring degraded habitats. Simply put, we are capable of living in harmony with the Earth, but the responsibility for sustaining balance, which equates to sustaining biological diversity, is ours. Let's take a brief look at Illinois. Because of its unique geographic location, Illinois has within its borders an unusually large number and variety of plants, animals, and habitats. Biologists have divided the state into 14 natural divisions, based on such factors as climate, glacial history, physical features of the land, and the distribution of native plants and animals. Within these natural divisions, Illinois has over 90 habitat types, and conservative estimates put the number of species at over 53,000. This is an especially large number of species for a geographic area the size of Illinois in a temperate climate. Situated on the edge of the eastern deciduous forest, the western Great Plains, the southern coastal plain, the Ozark uplift, and the boreal or northern forest, Illinois provides a meeting ground for organisms from very different geographic regions. These wondrous, rich, self-sustaining natural ecosystems that contained everything from lady slippers to bison in pre-settlement Illinois are our natural heritage. Early Illinoisans during settlement were concerned with survival and making a new life on the prairies and forest. They navigated and explored, logged, farmed, and constructed. Resources appeared inexhaustible. As E.O. Wilson, Harvard biologist, has noted, humanity spread across the worlds, God-struck, firm in the belief that virgin land went on forever. Among the habitat types found in Illinois are forests, prairies, savannas, marshes, fens, lakes and ponds, streams and caves. Although each of these habitats continues to exist, most are exceedingly small and often vanishingly rare because of the extensive urban and agricultural development that has occurred in Illinois over the past 150 years. Fortunately, remnants of nearly all the habitats that originally occurred in our state can be found in nature preserves, state parks, conservation areas, and other protected sites, and are a refugia for much of the state's biological diversity. They can also serve as templates, or as the first piece of the puzzle for wide-scale restoration efforts. 200 years ago, all of Illinois was a natural area, instead of the 1,500-plus sites now scattered across the state. Illinois was as wild and woolly as any stretch of landscape on Earth. Historical accounts spoke of huge trees, vast unbroken grasslands, and numerous wetlands. Let us now take a closer look at these three broad groups of habitat types found in Illinois: forest, prairies, and wetlands, to get a feel for Illinois' biodiversity. To Robert Ridgway, an early Smithsonian naturalist, the eastern border of Illinois was the last stronghold of the eastern deciduous forest, one of the wonders of the world. These were a primeval woods, with trees over 130 feet tall, with trunks 6 feet or more in diameter. Ridgway wrote in the 1870s, "If viewed from a high bluff, the forest presented the appearance of a compact level sea of green, almost endless, treetops swaying in the passing breeze, and the general level broken by occasional giant trees which rear their massive heads to overlook the surrounding miles of forest. In 1820, approximately 13.8 million acres of Illinois were forested. Today, nearly 4.3 million acres of trees can be found in Illinois. Lest we be too complacent, however, we should recall that much of the forest acreage of today is second or third growth timber, or pine plantations. Only 13,500 acres of relatively undisturbed forest remain, a frighteningly small percentage of our rich forested heritage. Fortunately, fragments remain of nearly all the forest types found in pre-settlement times, and these, in conjunction with land survey records, early written accounts, and good biological detective work, allow us to mentally reconstruct and sometimes physically restore the various forest habitats. To Eliza Steele, riding through Illinois in a stagecoach in 1840, the prairies were not a sight to be missed. She wrote, "I was in the midst of a prairie. A world of grass and flowers stretched around me, rising and falling in gentle undulations, as if an enchanter had struck the ocean swell, and it was at rest forever." The first Europeans to see the Illinois country had crossed a vast ocean, snaked their way through a nearly impenetrable mountain range, and forged a path through thousands of miles of dense, primeval forest. They did it with indomitable spirit and by sheer force of will. Yet, when they reached the edge of the eastern deciduous forest, today approximated by the Indiana-Illinois border, they stopped in wonder and marveled at the splendor and magnitude. Here was a landscape so different and so unique, their language had no word for it. In time, this landscape came to be known as prairie, a word derived from the French word for meadow. At first, early settlers avoided living on the prairie, but soon they realized the prairie made excellent cropland, especially after John Deere invented the moldboard plow that allowed virgin prairie soil to be relatively easily plowed. The wild prairies became cropland at an astonishing rate, approximately 3.3% per year. Over 300,000 people settled on the prairie in the period from 1830 to 1840, and by 1860, nearly all the prairies had disappeared. A poll of Illinois residents of today would find that most do not consider their state to be particularly wet. The early settlers and visitors, however, would have had a very different impression. When Charles Dickens visited the American Bottoms in 1842, all he could hear was the loud chirping of frogs, and all he could see was the mud, mire, brake, and brush on the unwholesome, steaming earth. An English journalist who visited the swamps of southern Illinois in the 1860s described them as a cheerless, miserable place, sacred to the ague and fever. Not all wetlands, however, were viewed with such disdain. By the early 1900s, a citizen from Greene County wrote, "Land that once overflowed, land that was a riot of rushes and gigantic grass, now produces corn with ears like stove wood." Glaciers profoundly affected Illinois' wetlands, and their retreat left countless large and small streams with many wet areas associated with them. Much of northeastern Illinois had numerous diverse wetlands, while central Illinois was covered in a montage of wet prairies and marshes. Extensive tracts of Tupelo cypress swamps existed in far southern Illinois. Illinois originally had an estimated 8 million acres of wetlands. Since Illinois became a state in 1818, nearly 90% of these have been drained, and about 1 million remain. A concomitant loss in the natural processes that wetlands provide was inevitable. Of further note, high-quality wetlands that reflect pre-settlement conditions are vanishingly rare today. Only about 6,000 acres remain. At present, we are woefully ignorant of the organisms with whom we share the earth. Only a small percentage of species, less than 15%, have been named, and we have a knowledge of the life history and ecological interactions of only a few of those. When the interactions among organisms are considered, the value of biodiversity far exceeds the sum of its parts. Indeed, biodiversity can be said to encompass the value of the entire natural world, and, whether we like it or not, we are not only a single component of that exceedingly complex web of life, but one that is totally dependent on it for survival. In 1890, Dr. A. W. Hare wrote, "What a pity that some of it could not have been preserved, so that those born later might enjoy its beauty also." In reality, Dr. Hare was correct, and shockingly little of Illinois' rich natural heritage remains. Illinois ranks an unenviable 49th of the 50 states in the percentage of natural land surviving. Only 0.07% remain. Graphically, it looks like this, and only Iowa has less natural land left. Most of Illinois has been converted to agricultural land and urban sprawl. Despite this, large trees, prairie pieces, and wetlands still persist, often only in miniature. There is hope for the future, though, and it comes from us. Illinois has one of the finest systems of nature preserves in the country, and the conservation and restoration movement continues to grow. To again quote Wilson, "Those with the foresight to preserve even a small part of this heritage will be remembered far longer than those who destroy the rest."